Chief Instructor Trevor Malak stood frozen as he watched the monitors for Dome 7, the Academy's ultimate unpassable braking test. Red alert lights painted his four heavy arms in shades of warning. Mud and thick grease smeared the center view screen. Inside the simulation, a human recruit named Maya Torres was doing something impossible. No warnings, no signals, no mercy. She had just trapped an artificial hunter drone under a fallen steel beam, ripped the pulse weapon from its casing, and was now waving 7 giant alien recruits forward into the dark. If you want to know how far human endurance can be pushed, stay on this frequency. The file had arrived on my desk 48 hours before the start of the cycle. I handle the dark records for the Galactic Military Academy on Primus Station, meaning I see exactly what the High Command tries to hide. Maya's entry sheet looked like a joke sheet. Her height was listed as exactly 162 centimeters. Her weight was a tiny 54 kilograms. The attached picture showed a soft, pink face with wide eyes and a constant, quiet smile that did not belong in a place built for lethal killers. Chief Instructor Trevor had laughed out loud when he saw it, his voice rattling the metal walls like an engine fire. He bet 3 weeks of credit chips that she would wash out before the first 96 hours ended. On day 1, the main training hall felt like the inside of a freezer. 200 recruits from high-gravity worlds stood in neat lines, their hides thick as armor plating. Trevor walked past them, his heavy boots making a slow, rhythmic thud against the steel plates. He stopped directly in front of Maya, towering over her small frame. She had to tilt her head back just to look at his lowest set of eyes. He told the class that his job was to break their bones until only the marrow remained. Maya did not flinch. She just kept that small, steady smile on her face and adjusted her issued gear strap. The real work began at noon with the 5-kilometer physical conditioning run. Primus Station has its baseline gravity set to a crushing level to test the lung capacity of elite warriors. The ground felt like magnet blocks pulling at our knees. By the 3rd kilometer, the air inside the track smelled like ozone and fear sweat. A 3-legged Christian recruit named Vex took the lead, his heavy muscles pumping hard, but even he was wheezing through his upper vents. They ran, they bled, they fell. Huge warriors from volcanic systems sprawled onto the track, their chests heaving as medical bots dragged them away. Through the dust, a steady sound caught my attention on the audio feed. It was the low, rhythmic breathing of the human. Maya was running with a strange, looping stride, her arms tucked close to her ribs. She was not sprinting, but she never slowed down. When she crossed the finish line in 5th place, she did not drop to her knees like the others. She stood upright, wiped a thin layer of salt from her forehead, and pulled out a small digital pad to take notes on Trevor's angry shouting. Trevor narrowed his 4 eyes, calling her survival a fluke of efficient oxygen use. He refused to admit a creature that stood at just 1,300 millimeters of soft tissue could match his best soldiers, so he bypassed the standard physical track entirely. The next morning, he dragged the remaining class to the psychological conditioning pods. This was the deep dark of the academy, a room filled with black pods that connected directly to a recruit's neural interface. The machine reads your brain waves, finds your deepest personal phobia, and turns it into a perfect illusion. The record for staying inside belonged to a high-caste warrior, who managed 42 minutes before screaming for release. Maya went into Pod 4 without a word. The technician, a small alien named Chorus, set the dials to maximum intensity. For 20 minutes, the data screens showed her heart rate spiking, her brain firing in the fear centers. Trevor watched the glass, waiting for the emergency release hatch to pop open. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. After 2 hours, her heart rate began to drop, settling into a calm, steady rhythm. When the hatch finally opened, Maya climbed out onto the cold floor. Her boots clicked softly. She looked up at the frozen face of Instructor Trevor, gave a polite nod, and asked if there was a level 2. Chorus, the technician, stared at his monitors, his fingers trembling as he filed an official complaint against the machine's programming. Maya walked back to the barracks, muttering something about how the simulation felt like a basic high school health class. By the 3rd day, the atmosphere in the staff lounge had grown tense. Trevor started drinking his grain spirit much earlier in the morning, his legendary confidence showing cracks. He spent hours reviewing human evolution logs. That was when the archive friends gave me the real data drops. Humans were not frontline brawlers, but they were persistence hunters. They were endurance monsters that evolved by chasing prey across hot plains for days until the target's heart burst from pure fatigue. Worse, their civilian culture was packed with things called horror movies, meaning they spent their childhoods paying money to sit in the dark and practice being terrified. The final test was Dome 7, a 72-hour braking exercise. The dome was an artificial wilderness filled with toxic mud, freezing rain, and 20 autonomous AI hunter drones. The drones carried pain sticks that could paralyze a full-grown warrior with one touch. The recruits were dropped in with zero supplies, told only to survive until the retrieval ships arrived. Within the first 10 hours, the drones had bagged half the class. The monitors showed recruits hiding under rock ledges, shivering in the fake rain, but Maya was moving. She spent the first night doing solo recon, watching the light patterns of the machine patrols. By hour 30, the control room went completely silent. The tracking dots for 3 separate drones had vanished from our master map. Trevor slammed his upper fists onto the console, demanding to know why the machines were not transmitting. "They are not broken, sir," Chorus whispered, his face turning an ash-gray color. "The sensors say their power lines have been cut from the outside." We zoomed the cameras into a deep ravine filled with thick mud. Maya was there. She was completely covered in black sludge and recycled drone lubricant, making her almost invisible to thermal sights. Before she moved, she performed a small, ordinary action that made my skin go cold. She stopped under a wide leaf, took off her issued safety glasses, and carefully wiped the moisture off the lenses using a clean patch of her wet sleeve. Then she put them back on and smiled into the dark. It was an ambush, it was a harvest, it was a hunt. When the next drone drifted into the ravine, it did not find a hiding victim. A heavy metal cable, salvaged from the first broken machine, snapped tight across the path. The drone tipped forward, its rotors whistling in protest. From the mud, Maya launched herself with a heavy piece of jagged plating. She jammed the metal straight into the drone's primary intake drive. Sparks showered the wet stone, casting long shadows across her face. She did not stop there, she did not run away with her prize. Instead, she dragged the heavy pulse weapon back to a cave where 7 other recruits were huddling in fear. Vex, the giant 3-legged warrior, was among them, his spirit entirely crushed by the cold rain. Maya threw the weapon at his feet. She did not give a speech. She just pointed out into the jungle, assigned 3 aliens to guard the flanks, and told them exactly how they were going to take down the remaining machines. For the rest of the 72 hours, Dome 7 belonged to the humans. Maya organized those exhausted, terrified recruits into a single functional hunting pack. They shared their meager rations, covered each other's blind spots, and coordinated 3 separate night attacks that caught the AI units completely off guard. The system was designed to test individual survival by forcing everyone apart, but the human treated the ultimate nightmare like a standard weekend team-building seminar. When the heavy blast doors of Dome 7 finally slid open at the end of the 3rd day, the medical bots were waiting with stretchers. They did not need them. 8 recruits marched out of the steam in a perfect, straight line. Maya walked at the very front, her small uniform ruined by grease, her boots encrusted with dry clay. The giant warriors walked 2 paces behind her, their eyes locked onto her shoulders as if she were a god. Trevor Malak stood at the edge of the landing platform. His face looked like a cracked stone wall. As Maya approached, she stopped, snapped her arm up into a perfect military salute, and held out her broken, scratched testing badge. Trevor's upper right hand rose to return the salute automatically, his fingers twitching with a strange rhythm. Vex stopped beside his instructor for a brief moment. The huge warrior looked down at the old veteran and said that they should put the human in charge of the next combat tactics class because they would all be much better soldiers if they learned how to hunt like her. The report went to high command that same evening. Trevor's official log did not mention a washout. He wrote that the current academy parameters were entirely dangerous because they underestimated the psychological foundation of the new exchange species. 2 weeks later, the high command quietly stripped Trevor of his rank and transferred him to a tiny satellite campus on the frozen edge of the galaxy. The official video logs of Dome 7 were locked away under an Omega clearance stamp, hidden from public view so the other systems would not see how quickly the old order had fallen. 43 more humans arrived on the next transport ship, their files clean and their faces smiling. The joint task forces across the sector are already bidding all their credits just to get a single human assigned to their units. They have realized that muscle means nothing when the universe changes its rules. In my dark archive office, I still keep Maya's original paper folder on the corner of the desk. The small digital screen shows those exact figures of 1,300 millimeters of fragile tissue. A heavy bronze Academy medal sits right on top of the glass, its polished surface reflecting the quiet dark of the room.